Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about another update that we've got for one of the numerous Ghosts adaptations. This time it is Australia, which is one that I'm particularly excited about. So this is now the fourth adaptation that we have got the Ghost announcement, the cast announcement for, the other ones being obviously the US one from a few years ago, Germany, France and now Australia. We have known about this one for a while, but we have finally got like the character descriptions, the ghost descriptions, and the cast and the synopsis and things like that. So obviously it follows the same story as all the other adaptations. A couple inherit a mansion and the female character, she has a near-death experience and then is able to see the ghosts and they get up to shenanigans and stuff. So we know it's going to follow the same format, that's not a surprise. So the two humans that are going to be in this are called Kate and Sean. Kate is going to be played by Tamala Shelton and Sean is going to be played by Rowan Witt. We don't know too much about them at the moment. All we know is that Kate is described as a go-getter and it's confirmed that she is the one that's going to be seeing the ghosts, so they're sticking with the female partner being the one to be able to see the ghosts. And the only other thing we know is that Sean is described as a nerdy city boy. And this I quite like. I think it's a bit different from the original. I wouldn't really describe any of the other characters as nerdy, except Jay actually is a little bit nerdy. And I think, you know, everyone can be a little bit nerdy about some things, and also being described as a city boy, I would say this is kind of similar to Jay's character in the US version. I would describe him as, at least at the start, being more of like a city person. Same with Sam, and that is a big thing that we see with the characters in all the adaptations, is that they're used to being in the city and now they're moving to the countryside. So that part is pretty similar. Now on to the ghosts. Now surprisingly, there are only actually 6 ghosts that have been announced in this version, which is definitely the lowest number that we've seen so far. There may be more introduced along the line, whether that be like the plague ghost or the basement ghosts, or just extra characters that come into play. Like with the US one, there's lots of characters that come for like maybe 1 or 2 episodes and then for whatever reason go away again. So they might be doing something like that. However, they might be going more with the UK one, but with a smaller cast, when they just have that very small ensemble cast and they all kind of got the same amount of screen time. They all kind of are equal characters maybe, I don't know. But I am interested to see how it will work with less ghosts. And I will say this is probably the most original selection of ghosts that we've seen from all the adaptations so far. So I'm definitely really excited to see how this one progresses. So the first ghost we're going to be talking about is Eileen, and she is an Irish potato famine survivor and mother of 13. She's also a publican. So this I think is quite an interesting character, I would say, in terms of relating it back to the original cast, probably most similar to Mary. We don't really know much about Mary's family in the UK one, but I think mother of 13 in this one, she's obviously got her hands full. I'll be interested to see whether she is more of a motherly character or very like strict, and like, you know, whether she's nice motherly or strict motherly. I don't know which way it will go. She looks quite unhappy in the photos, so maybe more of the strict way, or maybe she's sad because she misses all of her children. I always kind of imagine publicans of having to be quite strict with their the people that come into their pub, and also having that very nice, friendly, welcoming attitude. I did look up the Irish potato famine because I wasn't 100% sure of the dates, just to get an idea of what kind of era she's from. So the Irish potato famine happened between 1845 and 1852, and obviously this is a really dark time in Irish history. I actually didn't know that a lot of people migrated to Australia during this time, so that was something new that I learned. But yeah, a lot of people suffering in Ireland then fled to different countries, one of them being Australia. So obviously this journey would have been very, very difficult, considering it is literally on the other side of the planet and it would have been by boat, so it would have been a very difficult journey. So I wonder if she'll talk a little bit about that. And then you'd have the change in climate, the change in culture to get used to, this idea of being on a new land. So even though it wasn't really new, but in terms of them, a new land that they've got to get used to. So I think definitely an interesting character. Excited to see what kind of stories we hear from her. What we don't really have any indication of what her death was like, just judging by like the look of her. There's nothing obvious, like no arrow or anything, so we don't know how she dies yet. I'm excited to see how, kind of what story, because obviously she made the crossing to Australia. She might have lived there for a while. Next up is Gideon, and he is a stoic naval officer. So this is obviously their version of the captain, but kind of very different navy versus just normal army. So I did see a comment saying that he was fresh off the Third Fleet, and again, I didn't really know what this was because I don't know too much about Australian history, but these were a series of ships that went to Australia from Britain in around 1791, and these were ships that were transporting convicts, as Britain was using Australia as basically a massive prison. So people who were then sentenced for crimes would either maybe get the death penalty or be sent to Australia. The ships also transported people who were like setting up new like towns and settlements in Australia as well, and like notable people who were being charged, things like that. Like with Eileen, I imagine Gideon had to survive quite a rough journey. I know these kind of ships had quite a high death rate, so yeah, he would have probably seen a lot of suffering. But yeah, he also got to Australia as well. So I did know Australia was a penal colony, so it was used as a prison. So I was expecting either like a prison officer or, you know, someone in charge of the inmates, or a prisoner himself who was sent there to work in Australia. So I was expecting something like that, but I think this is not as like an obvious one to go with as like somebody who was on those ships transporting people, you know, whether or not he like was really strict, whether he thought he was very important, whether he thought he was the captain, that he was going to be in charge of these new lands, or whether like he was a bit of a pushover as an officer. Like there's lots of different ways this character can go. I have taken these character descriptions from a number of different articles, so each one kind of says a different thing, and I didn't find the like official press release, but one article said that he has regressive views. So yeah, obviously is not going to be one of the more progressive characters, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see how he will interact with the other characters, things like that. There's always a character I feel that they do put with less modern views in there, just, you know, to kind of show an example of like how different people lived and all the different expectations people had. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting character. I don't feel like he's going to be like the British captain. I feel like he's going to be more like Isaac, like feeling he was a bit more important than he was, but that's just pure speculation really. The next character is Miranda, and she is a socialite bride-to-be from the early 1900s. So I think this is really interesting. We've got somebody who looks to be in a wedding dress and is a bride-to-be, so perhaps died on their wedding day before getting married. She's described in one article as being repressed, so I do wonder whether this is the character that is perhaps repressing their sexuality in some way, like the captain in the UK or Isaac in the American version. And yeah, particularly with the wedding dress, maybe she didn't want to get married to whoever she was getting married to and either ran away or died tragically. Like, we don't know. There could be lots of different ways again that they could go with this. There is also the option that she is repressed in terms of like the oppression of women, so financially, politically, socially, and is more similar to Fanny or Hetty, Fanny from the UK one or Hetty from the US one, where she's kind of been forced into societal expectations. So there's again a few different ways they can go with this character, but I think this is a really interesting one of having somebody die on like such a significant day. And yeah, I definitely think she is wearing a wedding dress. So if she did die on her wedding day, either like before getting married or just after, I think that's a really interesting character that they can play with. So I'm really excited for this one. Next up is Lindy, and she is a 1980s aerobics instructor. In one article, she's described as bubbly. So I think this is a really fun character. I can imagine her being very high energy, maybe a little bit like Kitty, where she is like very clingy with Alison. So maybe this character always just like trying to talk to Kate and get to know her, and is perhaps a bit of a nuisance, but like a nice nuisance. That's kind of how I am imagining her at this point. I also think like she looks very iconic. You can definitely tell where she's from, and yeah, I'm interested to see how she died, whether it was like something that happened at like an aerobics class she was teaching, or whether she was just wearing that when she died. But yeah, I think this is a fun character, a very modern one, and I like that they're kind of experimenting with some of the more modern characters as well. I just think she's going to be really likeable. That's just the main thing I'm getting from her. So she seems like a very fun, more modern character. I do quite like that we do have a quite decent range in characters here. I think no two characters are like somewhat similar, which I really enjoy. Next up is June, and he is a Gold Rush era Chinese miner. And in one article, he is described as being concussed, so maybe that has something to do with his death. I didn't know too much about the gold rush in Australia, but I did find out that it was between 1851 and 1914. A lot of people came to Australia to participate and try and get rich from the gold rush, and this also helped change Australia and take it away from being a penal colony. It added a lot of diversity to Australia as well, because people were coming from all around the world. However, like with a lot of things, there was a lot of racism here as well. So a lot of people were racist towards the Chinese immigrants that were coming to Australia, even like so far as the Australian government at the time tried to limit how many Chinese people could come into Australia. So yeah, this is again something that I don't really have too much knowledge about, but I think it's an interesting era to explore a little bit through the ghosts. So yeah, this I'm definitely very interested to see. If he is concussed, like that one article says, then this definitely, I think, links to his death. So he could have died in an accident while mining, but I don't really think he did, because otherwise, like, why would he be in the house as opposed to like a mine? I don't know. But it also looks like he isn't wearing any trousers as well. So that is something that they have stuck with, always having a character that isn't wearing trousers. So my leading theory at the moment is that maybe he died because he found a lot of gold and was going to get rich, and someone thought that they're going to take it for themselves, and killed him to be able to steal that gold. Something like that, and that's why he's concussed. That maybe he died of like a head injury, something like that. I do wonder whether or not, if he is concussed, whether that will have an effect on like him as a ghost, whether he's going to be like always have some pain there, or like be confused. I don't know. Like, I've never been concussed, thankfully, so I don't know what it feels like. But yeah, I definitely feel like his death will have something to do with the fact that he found gold. Or they could do like a twist where he finds like fool's gold and thinks it's real and gets overly excited and hits his head or something. Like, again, with all these characters, lots of different ways they can go with this. So yeah, definitely excited to see where this one goes. And the last character we have is Satan, and he is a misunderstood 1990s motorbike gang member with a heart of gold. And I do always like this idea of a really tough, scary looking character being just the most lovable and nicest person ever. Is a trope that I really like, so I'm excited to see this in Ghost as well. We have seen this a little bit with Thor, I would say is probably the closest example in the American version, where he is this massive tough Viking but is actually quite sweet as well. Like, there is that trend with bikers where they only really go after like authoritarian figures, or they help track, they're like almost like vigilantes where they track down bad people. So there's different ways they can go with it. Maybe he just like participates in like petty crime, or maybe he just loves motorbikes and that's why he's in a gang. But yeah, I like this idea of him having a heart of gold. So maybe he's somebody that Kate is initially scared of, but then it just grows to love because he's so nice. So yeah, I think this is a wonderful selection of characters. There's lots of different like pairings you could have in terms of like friendships and stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we kind of get from all these characters. I think individually they all sound really interesting, and I'm really excited to see how they develop, what they add to their characters, and also get an idea of like what their lives were like, and like how that affects their death as well and their life as a ghost. So yeah, all that sounds very exciting. I do feel like there is a good mix of historical eras. As I said, I don't think any two characters like really sound the same. I was expecting there to be a First Nation or like an Indigenous Australian ghost, just because a lot of the history that we are taught is post-British invasion. So I was expecting that, but I did find out, a lot of people were commenting on the announcement, that it's actually disrespectful to portray a deceased Indigenous Australian in like their culture. So I definitely feel like it's good that they are respecting that. And also the actress Tamala, who plays Kate, is First Nation. So at least they are represented in some way, which I think is a nice way of doing it. Because yeah, we obviously don't want to upset people, but it's nice to have people represented. So I think that's a good workaround. But yeah, all of these ghosts are post like 17. I don't think there's anyone that's earlier than like the 1700s. So we are working with quite a short amount of history, but I do feel like within that time period we have a really good selection and a good variety. Yeah, and I wonder, are they going to have basement ghosts? We haven't really heard anything about that at the moment. I also feel the costumes look really good. I feel everybody looks real. I don't think anybody looks too clean or, you know, too artificial. I feel like everybody looks quite good, which I really like. I did find I had some issues with some of the costumes in the German and the French version. But yeah, I think these ones look fantastic. There are no real indications on any of the ghosts how they died, so they are leaving that open, which I think is quite nice. I do like finding out slowly how they died. That's one of the things I really loved about the UK version, and obviously it's nice to know how some of them died immediately. Like we knew how Pat died immediately, and Thomas had blood on him, but we're not really seeing any of that with these ghosts. We also haven't seen the house. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I don't know too much about architecture in Australia. I'd imagine it would have somewhat of a British influence if it was a mansion or a house that was built by British settlers in Australia, but I have absolutely no idea. To me, this adaptation feels like it's going in the middle of the UK and the US version. So I'm intrigued to see what bits they'll pull from each version. So yeah, I think this is going to be really good. I'm really excited for this one. I don't know where it's going to be available or when it's coming out. I imagine we probably got a little bit of a wait. But some of them have been released quite quickly. The French one came out a lot sooner than I was expecting, so was the German one. So yeah, I think this is going to be good. I'm always excited to see new adaptation of ghosts coming out because I miss the UK one so much. So yeah, this I'm very excited for. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for this one? Which ghost do you feel is the most intriguing? Do you think they'll have basement ghosts in this as well? So yeah, I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, it really helps the channel. And subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with ghosts. I'll have some more out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!